What's up everyone, welcome to another camera comparison video. Today I have this Redmi Note 10 Pro and Redmi K40. Redmi actually didn't release this Redmi Note 10 Pro in China, so I had to buy it online and I had to wait a long time to get this. I wish that you enjoyed this video cause I really did a lot of hard work to put this video together. Anyway, listen carefully which smartphone's microphone is working better, check carefully which smartphone actually grabbed more details and textures, in which clip color rendition is better. I think Redmi Note 10 Pro did better. Okay, one request, if you end up liking this video then please don't forget to click on the like button and please subscribe to this channel. It takes a lot to put a camera comparison video together, and if you can share this video on your social media, that really helps a lot. Okay, it's time to flip to rear cameras.
Memories fade away, with or out, but I can't ignore the ache.
Some people may not like the result of this camera comparison, but it is what it is and I am here to share the truth. Anyway, at the beginning let me tell you that I always take all the images in auto mode with auto HDR on, because I think most of the average people takes photos in auto mode. Both of these smartphones comes with identical 8 megapixel sensor underneath that ultra-wide lens. We cannot expect too much from this setup, but surprisingly both did pretty good. Dynamic range on Redmi K40 is a bit better. Yeah, because it has a better processor. I think that's the reason, because Redmi K40 comes with Snapdragon 870 and it has better ISP. But the difference in dynamic range between these two smartphones are nothing drastic. Talking about processing, look at this cropped image. This is beyond my imagination, and now I have started to feel like this Redmi Note 10 Pro is living up to all the hypes related to its camera. Let's watch through this comparison and we will know for sure. There are a few differences, like white balance jumps back and forth, tonal contrast in indoor environment under low light changes randomly. However, on Redmi Note 10 Pro, details and sharpness is way better than Redmi K40, and it is clear that Redmi Note 10 Pro managed to process more textures. Actually, I'm surprised to see white balance on Redmi K40. Warm color temperature, a bit saturation, and slightly higher midtones makes things even worse. It seems like Redmi Note 10 Pro is far ahead. Yes, sometimes Redmi Note 10 Pro shadows are a bit low, but that's nothing unacceptable. Moving on to the main sensor photos, and again I'm surprised. 108 megapixel sensor on Note 10 Pro versus 2 years old mid-range 48 megapixel sensor on Redmi K40. But with a better flagship class processor, K40 fought well. At a glance both look similar, but for sure Redmi Note 10 Pro picture is sharper and got a tone that is close to reality. Yeah, Redmi K40 dynamic range is again a bit better, and color temperature is same as those ultra wide photos, I mean a bit warm color temperature. After cropping in, we can see the real differences. Redmi Note 10 Pro image is amazingly sharper and there is enough details along with superb texture processing, while Redmi K40 failed. I always say hardware is important, but a lot depends on software. Look at this. Even if Redmi Note 10 Pro performed better in a brighter condition, in indoor environment Redmi K40 fought well, and in some K40 images I have even found more details and textures. White balance is also very close between these two, but color grading is somewhat better on Redmi Note 10 Pro. Yes, Redmi Note 10 Pro has more shadow details and exposure seems better in indoor environment. A lot depends on personal preference. Which one do you think is better? Neither Redmi K40 nor Redmi Note 10 Pro have that precious telephoto lens, and for zoom images depends on the main sensor. Actually both takes full resolution image and then digitally crops it in the center to produce a zoom image. As both uses the main sensor, for sure Redmi Note 10 Pro performance is better, cause it can take a 108 megapixel full resolution image, which is far better than 48 megapixel image taken by Redmi K40, cause it got a very old main sensor, Sony IMX582. No matter whether in indoor low light or outdoor bright light, Redmi Note 10 Pro digital zoom images are far better than Redmi K40. It's enriched with enormous number of details and textures. This really made me feel crazy. This is truly amazing. I think K40 almost lost the battle. Check these images and do you see the differences? Redmi Note 10 Pro got a dedicated depth sensor, but Redmi K40 doesn't have that. And it seems without a dedicated depth sensor, K40 did well. When I compare portrait photos, I care about bokeh effect, edge detection, amount of textures processed in the subject, and the separation line blend. After checking a lot of portrait photos taken by these two smartphones, it is clear that there is a difference in white balance and tonal contrast. But I am surprised to see that the Note 10 Pro fell behind. In terms of edge detection, none has performed great. Yeah, these aren't no flagships, but comparatively Redmi K40 did well here. Color curve and saturation is also a bit better on K40. Separation line blend performance is very similar in indoor low light, but once again better on Redmi K40. Yeah, clearly K40 Pro has more details, processed more textures and portrays reality. Maybe Redmi Note 10 Pro with new updates will get better in future. Things are totally different once we start taking pictures with main sensors in an indoor environment under artificial lights. I feel like I am repeating these words frequently, but I have no other choice cause Redmi Note 10 Pro actually has better color rendition. Details in shadows, texture processing, noise level and exposure. Everything seems a bit better. How can I forget about true to life skin tone and better white balance? This isn't what I have expected. I had better expectations from Redmi K40. Yes, a lot of people may argue that I have taken pictures under tricky lighting condition and maybe in a soft lighting environment K40 would do a lot better than Redmi Note 10 Pro. But I think that's really not a valid argument cause I have taken pictures on both the smartphones in the same environment. If Note 10 Pro can get through and process something better, then why Redmi K40 with better processor cannot do that? What about night mode photos? Is there any drastic difference? Yeah, here it's straightforward. Redmi Note 10 Pro is my winner, but I know a lot depends on personal preference. Like, do you want visibility? Do you want a photo that depicts reality? Or do you want a picture with balance between brightness and details? In these night mode photos, whatever you like, Redmi Note 10 Pro images are far better. I prefer good balance between noise, sharpness, highlights and textures. Truly, I did not expect such a great performance from Redmi Note 10 Pro. I know none of these two smartphones did as good as any other flagships, but we need to understand these are budget smartphones. Redmi Note 10 Pro has better color rendition and in terms of grabbing the reality, it did better. It has also processed more textures. K40 sometimes unnecessarily saturated the photos, increased midtones and that ruined the pictures. I have tried from a few different angles and lighting options and the results are the same. I would go with Note 10 Pro cause in terms of color grading, white balance, details and textures, Note 10 Pro did far better. Yes, there is no option for night mode portrait, but I have tried to take a few portrait photos in low light environment and the results are pretty similar. It is difficult to pick a winner, but if we do heavy pixel peeping then Redmi Note 10 Pro seems to be better. Do you actually take low light portrait photos? Do you need this feature? Please let me know in the comment section below. Moving on to selfie camera, and there isn't any drastic difference in performance. Redmi Note 10 Pro continued to produce photos with more details and textures while Redmi K40 applied a bit heavier skin smoothing beauty effect. Color rendition and skin tone is also better on Redmi Note 10 Pro. In good bright daylight condition, both of these two smartphones generated good selfie images, but under low light both struggled a bit. If we have to nitpick, then Redmi Note 10 Pro processed more textures and there are more shadow details. These are selfie portraits and skin smoothing beauty effect gets heavier on both of these two smartphones. I mean, even if you try to turn it off, there is some kind of skin smoothing beauty effect. I am actually happy to see how both of these two budget smartphones produced good selfie portraits with enough details. In terms of edge detection, separation line blend and details, both are pretty similar, but this new budget king Redmi Note 10 Pro has a bit better bokeh effect and also managed to get better edge detection. These video clips were recorded at 1080p 30 frames per second and exposure on Redmi K40 is pretty bad. Redmi Note 10 Pro did better. Both have the same white balance and saturation issue, but nothing serious. It's really minimum. I have been saying the same thing through this comparison, and once again Redmi Note 10 Pro managed to process more details and textures. However, skin tone, colors and dynamic range is almost identical. It's very close between these two. Highlights, midtones and focus on Redmi Note 10 Pro is really pretty good. None of these two smartphones have optical image stabilization and we cannot expect that on budget smartphones. Surprisingly, K40 with better processor failed to stabilize the video as good as Redmi Note 10 Pro. I think a camera comparison between these two smartphones with Gcam would be great, but I haven't found any Gcam app online that is usable and stable for Redmi K40. What do you think about these two smartphones? Please don't forget to make a comment in the comment section below. If you have liked this video, then please don't forget to click on the like button and subscribe to this channel.